Hi, and welcome to the Skeptical Leftist Podcast, the show where I talk to a variety of people to spread critical thinking, progressive politics, and left-wing philosophy. And today I'm joined by Eron from Re-Education. Thanks for joining me, Eron.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Corey.
So, I guess the reason I wanted to talk to you is because we're both anarchists, and but there's, I guess, other anarchist philosophies that I don't adhere to or don't really know much about. And I thought maybe you could help me understand these ideas or explore these ideas a little bit more, like anarcho-nihilism and or egoism, or like a more individualist type anarchists that aren't communist anarchists.
Sure. Yeah, well, I can definitely do my best to try to give you my little bit of information on that. Again, I'm an anarcho-communist too, so I don't know everything. I've read a little bit of their work here and there, so if I get things wrong, I know that I don't have to tell the comment section to go ahead and tell us that we're wrong about something, and maybe get some dialogue going, and that sort of thing, because that's the best thing to happen out of one of these kind of conversations.
For sure.
Yeah, so from what I understand, a lot of more individualist. Let's start off with more individualist anarchists, right? Because
Sure.
that's kind of where a lot of this stuff comes from what I understand. Back when Proudhon was writing about anarchism, he was more of an individualist anarchist than specifically a communist anarchist, right? And he came up with a whole lot of ideas that a lot of more, I don't want to call them right-wing anarchists, but definitely more, like I said, individualist anarchists use a lot of the ideas and so forth moving forward from there. So you have ideas about, obviously, property is theft. That is a big conflated term. It means a lot of different things. Maybe Proudhon meant something other than what we think that he meant by it, but there's a lot of talk about that. There's also, depending on what direction you go, there's also forms of community banking and stuff like that, which I think are really interesting ways to organize your society. And moving out from there, we've actually always had in anarcho-communism a certain bend toward a certain amount of individualist anarchism as well, right?
Sure.
Like Emma Goldman, she was quite quite an individualist anarchist at times. I know that she's made several inferences on talking about that. But I think that the way that anarcho-communists usually look at individualist anarchism is that it's no one person is an island, right? No one person is able to get everything that they possibly need just on the merits of themselves. I think that, like the old adage goes, like you could go into the middle of the woods and you could chop down a tree to make a house. But at the end of the day, where did you get the axe, right? Where did you learn how to build that house? Where did you get all of that information? So we exist in community, regardless of whether or not we want to be in that community. So being an individual, right, or being an individualist at some point down that chain requires a community to exist, right? And that's usually how anarcho-communism or anarcho-communists look at it.
Right. Yeah, from what I could see, it's not like individualist anarchists often don't reject that idea,
Yeah.
but often like almost like they place like their individual autonomy above as the primary mover, I guess I would say. Like, so then they don't say like the community is the most important group or thing. It's their individual actions and autonomy within that group that is the most important. I don't know. Is that how you understand it?
From what I've seen, yeah, I think that is basically the idea, and yeah, I don't think that they outright reject the idea that you need community at some point to be able to produce things. Of course, like when we're talking about the individualist anarchists and everything from there, right? We wind up with a very large spectrum of different ideologies, right? Like it can go all the way from mutualism to agorism to anarcho-capitalism, even way on the far right end of that.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a big space in between there. So a lot of people believe a lot of different things in regards to that. but yeah, it's as far as I think it's yeah, even egoists and stuff like that, people that follow Proudhon, that sort of thing, they usually do understand and recognize that there is a certain amount of community that is necessary.
Yeah. I
You know,
I was looking at like anarcho-nihilists was kind of how I
or,
got initially interested in the topic, and
yeah,
so I dealt with someone on say Twitter or whatever who was rather, I don't know, toxic is my term, I guess, who called themselves an anarcho-nihilist. So when I was kind of expounding how can anybody believe in this nihilist nonsense, I got talking with someone who was like, well, it's not so much that they, remove all these things that left anarchists or anarcho communists believe. They're like, but they don't hold on to the hope that we're going to build a better society, or
mhm,
they don't. Their kind of resistance is all about like destruction in a sense. Like they're okay with removing the system as it is or destroying as much as they can within the system, but they don't worry about what comes next.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't believe that anything that comes next is going to necessarily be better.
Right.
Is that
That
kind of what
yeah
they're believing?
yeah
Yeah.
that's kind of what I
So
thought. Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what I understand too. And the thing is, right, is I think that a lot of the criticisms that anarcho-nihilists and that entire spectrum have of anarchism, even anarcho-communism, a lot of those criticisms are interesting criticisms, right?
Right.
Like I was reading something the other day. Well, for example, like the adage, even a gilded cage is still a cage, right? I just finished doing a whole series of videos on law and crime, right? And at a certain point, I say we should probably create a community that's able to work towards rehabilitating really difficult cases. And
Mhm.
people come in and they say, and I've noticed nihilists will say this, and others, and they'll say, well, even a cage the size of an entire community is still a cage. How, like, are you going to keep people in there? I usually, say it's not like that. It's not something that's going to need guards or anything like that. But the question, like, but the thing is, right, is that those questions, though they are really good questions theoretically, right?
Right.
I think that it misses an important human aspect of it, where yes, though we can ask uh, all kinds of questions that have very difficult answers, right? But human beings, as a species, we're an imperfect, not necessarily rational bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point do we actually take into consideration those factors and think that maybe axioms like that, that say all or nothing, essentially, when do they start to break down, and when do we actually have to look at that point where they start to break down? And I think
Right.
that's mostly the issue that I have with a lot of their arguments is that they're really good arguments, they're
Yeah.
really good questions to ask, um, but I almost feel like it's an absolutist mentality. I'm
Mhm.
not really sure. What do you think?
No, I think that from my perspective, that's a pretty accurate uh, explanation of what I've seen and read. Uh, I understand much of the criticisms say they have of like anarcho communism, like the idea that well, if you put into place these structures, what's to stop them from being systems of domination in the same way
Yeah.
that the current system is? And you go, absolutely, like that's something that we have to always be vigilant about.
Yes.
And like, yeah, morality can be a trap if you aren't using good reason to evaluate what's moral and what isn't, right? Like if somebody's just dictating from on high or for the group, then of course the morality is a trap. It is a type of uh, domination is
Mhm.
in a sense, right? Like so all these things really make a lot of sense, but I can't help but wonder like, well then what other choices do we have? Like do we just choose not to like do anything or not to build anything or like always live in a sense of perpetual like resistance? I mean
Mhm.
maybe we do have to do that, but that's not really how I see things, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. I had actually a very similar conversation with Daniel from Anarch about this, where it's like, at what point do we have to take things serious? Like, we can criticize and criticize and criticize all we want, and those criticisms are important.
Yeah.
and we need to think about those criticisms, right? But it's when it gets to the point where it's like absolutist that it makes things like very difficult to be able to work around. I think that the goal, right, and I think that in any kind of like functioning society, you're going to have disagreement on all sorts of sides, right?
Hmm.
And if we were to have like an anarcho-communist society, oh my God, that would be amazing. And on one side, we have people that are arguing that we could be doing things better. Oh my God, that's a great thing,
Yeah,
right?
for
Like
sure.
that's exactly what we want. But I think that what the problem is, like the disconnect specifically with me and anarcho-nihilists is I am an optimist. A lot of people say Pollyanna. I think that that's ridiculous. I think that you can be a realistic optimist,
Yeah.
especially if you know work towards getting the things that you're trying to achieve, rather than just sitting back and saying the universe is just going to hand it to me, man. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
like, so, but I think you can be a realistic optimist, and that's my thing is that at the end of the day, I do think that we have a better nature. I think that we can work towards creating an ideal system, and I think that we have all of the tools and equipment to do that. Right now, it's just a matter of us getting over the hump, getting away from these trappings, you know, that
Yeah.
are holding us back from being that fully actualized human species that can work with nature, that can work with our economy, that can work with each other, right, and actually create something better. Like we're right there. We're right on the cusp of this, you
Yeah.
know. And I can see why a lot of people are nihilistic about it too, right? Because with the way that we live, we see everything in these terms where it's all capitalism or nothing. It's all hierarchy or nothing. We
Yeah.
don't. We have a hard time training our brains to even be able to see that there could be alternative systems,
Yeah.
right? Like I was talking about in another video earlier too. For thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, people have used non-hierarchical structures to organize with each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's only been in the last 10,000 years that we even started creating hierarchies over the course of 200,000 years that we started creating them. And they were only really used in certain places in the world,
Yeah.
right? There are a lot of places all across the indigenous world that didn't use that sort of structure or anything like that. But we've completely wiped out that history. We've
Yes.
completely wiped out that mentality. And now none of us can even imagine a society where we don't operate that way.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's when people look at everything, they're like, okay, well, once everything falls apart, there will be nothing else because we can't achieve the thing that we want. So there'll just be fire and torment and fucking shadowy dudes riding horses with fucking swords and shit, chopping. Yeah, it's like that, which
Yeah.
also is a cool image. I love the anarcho-nihilist imagery,
Right.
but I don't think that it's. I think that there's a realistic, optimistic path forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I often think of like the book like Humankind by Rutger Bregman or like Paradise. Oh, I can't even remember but it's like stories, books about how people react in disasters and build communities and don't harm each other, but rather help each other. And just
Yeah.
out of nothing, like no incentive except that they're other humans and they need help. And like, I read these stories and I see this Hobbesian a war of all against all type view of the world. And
Right.
I just can't help but reject it. Like,
Yeah.
it just seems so clearly not the way that humans actually function.
No, exactly, and historically, it's not like as far as the anthropology and the and all of that is concerned. Like there was no all versus all. That's essentially just a myth to perpetuate the way that we've been operating today.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so all throughout history, there's and you know Marx wrote about this, and all thinker any realistic communist thinker has written about that pendulum swing, right? I think that it was originally Mao that said the pendulum swing, or at least a translation of it of his work did, where we go from revolution to reaction, and revolution to reaction and back again. You
Right.
know, and I think that that is definitely something that that we're going to see, and depending on how we build towards that, depends on what we're going to see from it. You know,
Right.
planting the seeds of the new world, right, and watching those seeds grow and being able to sow those, or and being able to harvest those plants and so forth. But if we're not working right now to build those things, if we fall into and I don't want to say that anarcho-nihilism is just being nihilistic and not trying at all, because I don't know for sure, but I don't think that that's what it is.
Right.
You know, but I feel like us falling into those habits of thinking that there is no path forward is exactly going to be the thing that causes us to have no path forward.
Right. Right.
It's a self-realizing prophecy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like I think of like I know he sucks. Milton Friedman's phrasing about the when disaster hits, people pick up the ideas that are laying around, kind of thing.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, like so then make our ideas should be the ones that we want laying around.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think, and we talk about it all the time. Anarchism doesn't want to have any leaders; it wants to be a leadership of ideas. The
Yeah.
ideas themselves lead the way, and then that way, as long as we're following by the ideals and the principles and everything that we have, then we'll have a pretty solid path forward. And it's such a malleable ideology that we can take a lot of the goods and successes that communism in the past has had, even that capitalism has had, and reintegrate those in a way that we can use them in a society moving forward. But I think that if we don't try for that, then we're going to fail. And we have to try in a lot of different ways, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's not just about building dual power, but of course it's about building dual power, right? But it's also about the unionizing. It's also about the community building. It's also about all of these other things. Um, and yeah, when you're stuck at home and you got the doom scroll and you got the never ending feed of just constant drama and constant uh, terrible shit, like the whiplash that you get basically when you're reading through a lot of these infinite scrolling apps. You'll have something, whatever, like somebody's cleaning off rust off of a frying pan, and then the next thing somebody's like doing a landscaping video, or here's a topical thing, and then all of a sudden you'll see somebody just get fucking killed out of nowhere.
Right. Right.
Like some fucking horrific, horrendous fucking thing that happens out of nowhere. You know that and it just kind of takes all of these, like, you're almost conditioned Pavlov's dog style to like all of these good things that are happening and then all of these bad things that are happening at the same time and then all of these horrific things. It all kind of gets fucking blown into your mouth like a fire hose.
Yeah.
And no doubt people are getting anxious about these sorts of things and looking at the future and being nihilistic about it, and thinking that things can't actually get better, or they have to get so much worse before they can get better.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think that's a realistic outlook, honestly.
Yeah. I think like so I haven't read it yet, but I was recently talking to Chris from the channel It Had to Be Said, and he brought up
Mhm.
the book Blessed Be the Flame, which is like a book about resistance from an anarcho-nihilist perspective
Okay.
within a concentration camp. And so it was like this for him, the way he seemed to explain it was like, this is what resistance looks like when you cannot win. And I wonder
Mm.
if that's kind of maybe something that is of value from anarcho-nihilism that maybe I didn't really realize was there until recently.
Oh, I love that. See, this is the thing. Like every time I read about a different branch of anarchism, it's always something on the surface, but when you dig a little bit deeper, there's more to it than just the surface level.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought that up, because there's certainly, I would say that is an awesome thing. I mean, it's such a terrible situation to be in where there is no hope. You are not leaving. There's nothing that you can do. And what does it look like to find to what how, so how exactly did it work? How
I'm
would they
not
do
even
that?
sure. Yeah,
Oh.
like I said, I haven't read it. He
We
kind
have
of
to read
talked
these
about it.
books.
Yeah, we have to read these
Yeah.
books. Yeah, it seems uh like how do you resist or get the motivation to resist in a situation like that? You must get it from somewhere, right? Like
Right.
the desire to resist must be strong enough, and without the optimism, without grabbing onto that optimism that you and I both seem to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it would definitely be helpful to have the next time we hook up to we'll have to get somebody that is an anarcho-nihilist to just put us in our place and tell us
Yeah,
exactly what's going
yeah, that's
on.
right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I often like because so many of our interactions are online and people are not reasonable online, it becomes like this like, well, I'm an anarcho-communist. Oh, well, that sounds like you're a Marxist-Leninist or you're a fascist to me. And you're like,
Right.
oh, fuck, I don't feel like I'm a fascist.
Holy shit. Yeah, trying to navigate through any of the political discourse when it comes to like ideologies or anything like that online right now it's a political minefield. You
Yeah,
know, and this is actually something I've been bringing up a lot lately is that so many definitions of things that we have been flattened to the point that they are completely meaningless.
right.
Right? Like the word communism, the word socialism, the word anarchism, every single one of those words. And I think that it's an intentional thing. You know,
Yep.
if you've completely muddied the idea of a word and you take it out of the common lexicon and you make it into something that it's not, then people lose that word. You know, they
Yeah,
lose, and sometimes they can lose the ideals behind it. You know, and I think that happened with communism. I think that happens with the word state. You know, I talk about that a lot too, about how the word state has been flattened to mean basically any kind of group of people that do literally anything together,
right.
you
Yeah.
know, when it actually has an actual definition. So, yeah, like trying to talk about politics online, man, you're going to have bad times.
Yeah, for sure. I guess,
You got to thick skin.
yeah, online discourse is not what it should be. That's
No.
for sure. Yeah, so I guess one of the things that I saw in like what I was looking at about anarcho nihilism, what I fully agreed with was this idea that many of the yeah, I just wrote it down here. Many of the values and institutions that we take for granted, like the state, capitalism, religion, and even certain moral codes, are social constructs that serve to maintain power structures and control people.
Mhm.
And I'm fully on board with that. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I believe too. So there's not really any like conflict in that sense. Like
Mhm.
so yeah, I just wonder like how much how much of the moral code, like how do we get from this kind of overlapping kind of criteria where we agree on this thing? Is it just a matter of like methods maybe? Or like
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think that it always boils down to methods, and it boils down like sometimes it also yeah, like it boils down to methods and theory, right? Theory and praxis. That's the whole anarchist thing, right? And like when we go back into the history again with the beginnings of individualist anarchism and stuff like that, which you know I think that there is a pretty clear through line to anarcho nihilism now is that things, for example, like democracy, right? Emma Goldman and many other individualist anarchists always talk about how democracy is not the best way to organize society. How you could have the tyranny of majority, and that's a real thing.
yep,
And how they rejected democracy outright. You know, and then you'd have other people like Rudolf Rocker, who was an anarcho-syndicalist back in those times.
yep,
He stood up and said, "No, I think that democracy is the truest form of the way that we can actually organize with each other, but we have to be using true democracy. And what does that look like? And is it just direct democracy?" And later on, we talked about different ways that we could use even other forms of democracy, right? Like consensus and
right,
vote weighing and those sorts of things. You know, so I think that the ideas that a lot of these positions give us, you know, are ideas that we should critically use to analyze our movement and to actually move forward with it. And the other thing too is it's not even just the anarcho-nihilist sphere as well. But like that could be said about anybody, right? Even if liberals have a specific, well-read like grievance with anarchism about how like certain things don't work, I think that it's important for us to take in those criticisms and be like, okay, let's try to work on that. You know,
yeah,
let's figure out how to get around that because the idea is to get to a stateless, classless, moneyless society. It's not to hold on to dogma or to hold on to specific modes of operation, or even
Right.
to use a singular one.
Right.
It's about
Right.
getting to the goal rather than the way that we get to the goal. Well, the means and the ends are, of course, important,
Right.
but how to get there, you can use a diversity of tactics.
Yeah, like I often think too, like what might work for one group of people in one area may or may not work for another group of people in another area. And like depending on their material conditions that they happen to be rising up in, right? Like it's gonna be different for an anarchist in Russia than it is in or an anarchist in America, which is different from an anarchist in Africa and whatnot.
Right. And all throughout history too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What should we maybe look up some sort of definition or whatever on the idea, and then we can kind of work off of that.
Sure, sure. Let's
Okay.
see what we can find here. There's got to be something on the anarchist library. Okay. What about the wiki page?
Yeah, let's see what that is.
Oh, there's an anarcho-nihilism.com.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, let's go over that. I bet that'll give us exactly what we need.
Okay. What do they say? I'm an individualist because I'm an anarchist, and I'm an anarchist because I'm a nihilist. But I also understand nihilism in my own way.
Hmm.
I don't care whether this is Nordic or Oriental, nor this is from Renzo Novator, who says I am also a nihilist. At the start is a Stirner quote. The divine is God's concern, the human man's. My concern is neither the divine nor the human, nor the true, good, just, free, etc., but solely what is mine. And it is not a general one, but it is unique as I am unique. Nothing is more to me than myself.
Yeah, and a lot of anarcho-communists like read Stirner and read a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's not like we don't pull nothing away from it. There's a lot of really good things that have been said, by
Yeah,
a lot of different people. Like you can find a lot of good in a lot of different things. Even actually, one of the things that I thought was interesting when I read through Proudhon, uh, Proudhon, I don't know how to pronounce his name properly,
I
but
think Proudhon is right. I think you're right.
Proudhon,
Yeah,
something like that. The French, the
I
French
would. Yeah,
pronunciation,
I would pronounce it Proudhon. That's how I would.
Proudhon. Yeah, yeah. But like communal banking, right? I think that that's an interesting idea. I actually
Right.
think that there is a place for us to be able to use that idea um, in an intermediary at a stage in anarchism where we maybe have control over a certain amount of territory, but we still have to trade with other countries or other capitalist forces or whatever. If we can get to the point of actually trading, I think that like something like not a communal bank, but essentially like a stockpile of foreign currency and gold and stuff like that might actually be useful to be able to do international trade. So like, and I know a lot of anarchists are like fucking going, what are you talking about? Can't have any money at all. And I agree. I'm just saying like there are a lot of ways that we could go about doing things. So
Right.
like I'm not going to limit us on just being purely ideologically pure or whatever. But
Yeah,
I
and
think it's an interesting idea. I don't
yeah,
know.
and I'm not the type of guy like. While I may or may not think of like the word bank, really, it's not a great word, right? It's not.
No.
Banks are generally bad, but I'm not in a position to ever say like I know everything and I can dictate to
Yeah,
people the best way to be. So, yeah, no,
exactly.
I
That's
have
the way I
my
look at it
ideas, but
too.
yeah,
Somebody much smarter than me is going to look into it and be like, actually, this is the only way that we could do this, or we shouldn't do it at all. I don't know. Um, I came to the conclusion I'm actually going to because I did an interview the other day, and people always ask me, "Hey, tell us about yourself, right? Tell us who you are." And I never know how to say it, right? I always go on this like long spiel. I'm like, I don't know. I make videos. I do, you know, direct action, that sort of thing. I'm going to start off now. I'm just going to be like, I'm a construction worker, and now I'm an anarchist because I got fed up. Like, I'm not a brilliant genius. I had the time to read. That's all. That's the only difference between me and you is I had some time to read some shit.
that's fair. I yeah, like I feel the same way. Like I'm just a grunt in the oil field, right? Like I'm just a
Yeah,
guy who works with it. And I just read a lot and I found some opinions I agreed with and some that I didn't. And I somehow I became the opposite of every guy that I work with.
We're literally just workers. Like
Yeah.
we're just workers, and it's funny that that's the way that a lot of the anarchists are right now. And but whereas you have like other bents and stuff like that, or the intelligentsia and people coming out of like Harvard or business schools, or all of those sorts of things, and it's like, guys, aren't the people you're trying to relate to like? Like, I'm
Yeah,
just saying. I'm just
that's
saying.
right. Yeah, like it does seem weird to see like an academic who works in a university or like is a professor or what have you talking about like the workers, right? Like it's like,
Yeah,
okay, but do you get what a construction worker or an oil field worker is dealing with on a day-to-day basis? Do you actually have some kind of recollection of what it's like to work with your hands for a living?
right. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too is that throughout history they always say that we're too stupid to get it. Like
Right.
they always say we're just dummies. We're just dummies. We don't know how to we don't know that we're being exploited. We're just a bunch of fucking idiots, man.
Yeah, I
I'm a
just saw.
union guy. I don't know nothing.
Yeah, I just saw your short on Instagram talking about Leninism and the Vanguard, and that's
Yeah,
exactly that, right? Like it's like, oh well, I will represent the workers.
right.
Well, why can't the workers represent themselves?
Yeah, like what's going on here? Holy fuck, did I ever get a lot of criticism for that, man? It was like usually on the first day that I release something, it's usually pretty good comments.
Right?
And by the second or third day, that's when I get the shit and the hate and all of that kind of stuff. First day, fucking hour one, I was already getting a bunch of hate comments. I'm just like, guys, like it's a lighthearted video. I'm making a skit, like it's a joke.
Right? Yeah,
Just chill the fuck out.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Whatever.
it's like, yeah, like probably mostly Leninists then, or
Oh
just
yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah,
that
just
is
Lennon's just really mad, really mad. I made the biggest straw man in the world, and it's like, yeah, I know. It was just
yeah,
like this is an amalgamation of 100 conversations that I've had with Leninists in the past.
yeah,
Like, yeah, was it a straw man? Yes, yes, it was a straw man. Did it have some like pretty good points in it? I hope so.
yeah, yeah.
Like, let's just self criticize, guys. Let's self criticize.
That's right. Exactly. Mao would be so disappointed. They cannot take any criticism.
Now be pissed. Y'all say that you have him on speed dial. Call him once in a while. See what
That's
he
right.
said.
See what he says. Mao would be very disappointed in you. So I've got this. It's like Holcomb Ball wikitide.org. So
Okay.
it's basically it has the wiki for anarcho nihilism.
Hmm.
So it says it's an ultra radical anarchist post leftist ideology and a form of anarcho individualism that advocates for the complete rejection of all social institutions, including religion, law, and any form of morality.
Hmm. Really?
The,
That's
com-
interesting.
the complete rejection of all social institutions seems like is an interesting one to me.
Yeah. And rejection of all morality.
Yeah, yeah,
What does
any
that
form of morality.
I feel like that means more than what it seems like it means right on the surface. Like there's gotta be a whole thing about that.
Yeah, let's see what we can find. Anarcho. Let's see if there's if I just control F morality, is that going to work?
Maybe. Because I mean like I could make a pretty solid argument right now about modern Western morality being based off of chauvinist ideals and apartheid and all kinds of and of course religious extremism and all of those sorts of things. So I could definitely make an argument saying, the way that we use morality nowadays to further political ends is definitely a bad way to do things. Morality in general, I think that I'm a fairly moral person.
Yeah, like
Um,
I guess you got to find out how they're defining morality, right?
That's exactly yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, like uh
We're gonna walk out of this being anarcho nihilists. We're just being so charitable. Like right out the
right.
bat. We're gonna be wearing balaclavas and fucking chaos stars on our shirts.
Right. Yeah, geez. See. They embrace an existential rejection of meaning and imposed morality, a stance that aligns them with Nietzsche's rejection of absolute values and metaphysical truths.
Oh, interesting. I mean, that is a way to go about that. Like a lot of Nietzsche has been debunked over the years and stuff like that. So, and
Right,
I would never stand here and be like profess to know a lot or even a little about Nietzsche. I've read a little bit here and there,
right,
but I
right.
think that a lot of people that are in those fields, they don't respect his ideas as much nowadays as they did in the past, from what I understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, anarcho-individualism, frenemies. This is interesting.
Okay.
And flat out enemies. So, uh, where's anarcho-communist? Are we enemies of nihilists or are we frenemies?
I sure hope it's frenemies.
Yeah, ditto.
Come on, friend. We could use some more frenemies.
I don't see us
If
in.
all the workers get together, I swear to God, we're going to get some serious prizes at the end. It's like a sweepstakes.
Ooh,
You guys don't even know.
syndicalism is an enemy of nihilism, supposedly.
Oh, I guess because it would be an organizational structure.
They say, I mean, this is probably like pretty off the cuff or like kind of snarky on purpose, but it says
Okay.
after the state is down, your stupid little unions and federations will be next.
Jesus Christ. Huh.
So that's a little snarky on purpose, I'm sure.
I think so. I think so.
Black anarchism is considered a frenemy. It says Black lives matter, but do they really? Question mark. The fact is, no lives matter, kid. It's the same as anarcho-feminism. Just pick up a gun and start killing some racist cops. You know damn well
Absolutely.
that peaceful protests are useless.
I mean, like this reads like somebody is very angsty, and I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't want to. I just don't
Yeah,
know if this is a tenable solution.
yeah, that's right. I don't know if this actually counts as like, yeah, like even under relationships in brackets, it says not like it matters anyway. Like this is definitely like,
Okay, so you know what I'm getting. You know what I'm starting to. You know what we might have egg on our face here
yeah,
because it might be like one of those like post ironic things that are like, yeah, it's real, but yeah, it's fake at the same time. Don't take it
right.
seriously, but also kind of take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows, right? Like
Hmm.
I wish people
We're
would
getting
realize that
trolled. We're getting
satire
trolled.
is dead, like and just be honest, sincere already. Like
No, but that's the thing. It's like we're post satire now, so like all satire is sincerity at the same time. Nothing means anything anymore,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yet it means
And
everything.
then it
We're
means
we're getting
everything.
old. That's the problem is we don't understand this because we're old.
Yeah, that's probably true. Like I that's that there's a lot going on that I don't get because I'm almost 50 now.
Exactly. Like, what am I supposed to do here? That's an uphill battle for me.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't even
Uh,
understand where's the skippity.
where's the skibbity?
I don't know where it is.
I actually do know what skibbity is because my kids watch Skibbity Toilet.
Thank
Or
God.
not
Thank
anymore,
God
but
for that.
yeah, not anymore because it's not cool anymore. But
Oh,
they
okay.
did when it was cool.
You're on to the next thing now.
That's right. Which is Sprunky. Sprunky.
Fuck yeah, it is.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
keep adults on their toes, man. That's the whole point of being a kid. Like, fuck
yeah.
it. We used to say all kinds of shit, like just random things that we would hear other people make up, or most of it was probably stealing from AAV.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. One of the things that does kind of bother me with kids is calling everything Sigma now. Like,
Right.
because that to me that came out of the manosphere. It was like the
Yeah.
Sigma male nonsense, which is just like another categorization between alpha and
Yeah.
beta and all that shit.
I
And
thought it was smegma males. The smegma males.
Smegma male.
Pretty sure
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Well, there's like there's even like a song like Sigma Sigma boy Sigma boy. It's like
Oh
very
my God.
yeah.
All
Um.
the younger people in my family are German, so I hear a lot of German little kid songs all the time,
Okay. Yeah.
and they're just as silly.
We have something here. It says under history. It says Key figures like Peter Kropotkin saw Russian nihilism as a revolutionary force that symbolized the struggle for individual freedom against all forms of tyranny. Though Kropotkin himself was a social anarchist, he recognized nihilism as essential expansion of rebellion against oppressive institutions. Okay, well
Okay.
then, if they call Kropotkin a social anarchist, then that's what we are, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
Which
But
puts
I mean,
us,
hey, if Kropotkin gives it the green light, that says all good things to me.
yeah, that's pretty positive.
That's a pretty good endorsement, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know quite what to make of this anarcho nihilism stuff, but it does seem as though uh, like I'm often stuck like your gray anarchists or whatever,
Mhm.
anarchists without like
Gray market anarchists, like
yeah,
agorists and shit, yeah,
right. Like I get a lot of like
or minarchists too, yeah.
right. Yeah, like does it seem like an abdication of responsibility to your fellow humans to focus solely on the individual? Or is there a balance to be had between individualism and communalism or communism or what have you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the real question that I have too. Is like like again, going back to what I said at the beginning. Now that we've read a little bit of about their wiki and stuff like that, at what point do we take things seriously when the rubber hits the road, that sort of thing? I think it's
Yeah,
fitting that they brought a quote from Stirner right off the hop, right?
right,
Where Stirner was a similar thing. I remember when I was reading him, it was serious-ish, but it was also a little bit tongue-in-cheek and in places and stuff like that. And actually, I remember I had a bit of a hard time reading it because I wasn't from that time period. So some of the things that they were talking about honestly went over my head a little bit. So
okay,
yeah, but I know that he was making jokes and making references, and maybe not jokes, but at least tongue in cheek sort of deal. So if that's the same sort of situation here, I think that it's great. I think that it's fun to ask those questions, and I think that it's revolutionary also to have very radical criticisms, even if there aren't necessarily answers. But it hits me in a certain way where it's like, no, but you don't understand. I need the answer. Like
right,
I need them to be able to operate. I need to know how we're going to do a thing. I need to know like what are the historical consequences? How did they do this in the past? All of those, like the nuts and bolts of it is really why I love anarcho-communism, because people have
right,
tried it, they've worked with it, they've figured ways to do it. And when it comes to the pure ideological criticism that a lot of individualist anarchists bring to it, I think that it's so important, but it's also like, I don't know at what point it's instructive. It's definitely destructive and deconstructive, but
right.
where is it instructive?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you've given me all these criticisms and critiques
Yeah,
and ideas of what shouldn't be done, but what am I supposed to do?
exactly. Yeah. Like, where do I go forward from here? Because,
Yeah.
like, I agree with a lot of the criticisms, right?
Yep.
And like, here's the thing: it is a possibility that if not operated correctly, and everybody isn't in the group with the same goals and everything like that. Yeah, an anarcho-syndicalist union, even in an anarcho-communist society, there could be places where hierarchy grows from that, or there could be power structures and dynamics that end up coming out of celebrity or out of people just knowing each other in small communities and shit like
Yeah.
that. Like those are all, but that's the thing about anarchism is it's not just an ideology; it's a process,
Right.
right?
Right.
Even once we achieve what or not achieve, but when we get close to what we want, we still have a long way to go because we're always going to be working uh, on dismantling those unnecessary structures and hierarchical structures. And I think that that's actually a historical way to look at anarchism as well, is that throughout history, anarchism, or at least the idea of non-hierarchical organizing, right, would always go through these periods where sometimes there would be a certain type of hierarchy that formed and then it withered, and not withered away, but it was dismantled and gotten rid of. And then another one would form and so forth. And it would do so when necessary.
Right.
Sometimes a tribal chief is necessary if they wanted to do some sort of war game where they needed to to plan a certain type of thing, and then maybe other times it wasn't. Maybe sometimes a certain person knew how to build a certain structure and other people didn't. So there would be a hierarchy that formed, and then once it was built, that was dissolved away. So I think that that's historically and throughout history, right? That's kind of the way that non-hierarchical civilizations have always risen and subsided and all of those sorts of things. So yeah, is it possible for us to never have any kind of institutions whatsoever ever again? I don't know. I don't think so. But we might need to evolve a little bit more as a species before we can get to that point.
Right.
Before we can become part of I don't even know, the all-knowing oneness of the universe sort of deal, right? Like we're not there yet. We're still corporeal beings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I guess I know it's fiction, but I think of The Dispossessed, right? And and like the Ursula K. Le Guin's kind of vision of a anarchist world, they still had situations where kids bullied other kids. Like bureaucracy showed up, and people who didn't really deserve to be in a position of decision making ended up being in positions of decision making. And these were things where even an individual might have to rebel against their anarchist society.
Right.
And you go, okay, so maybe it will never be perfect, right? Where nobody ever has to rebel again. But I think ultimately anarchism, like you say, it's a process. It's about that always striving for the most liberation within the world that we can have.
Yeah, it's like, what is the old saying? Like the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I think that's like a right-wing libertarian slogan, but it's true.
It's true,
right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to need to constantly be vigilant and constantly question those sources of power and those dynamics. Because the thing is, right, is that even today we have structures in place that were originally put there to be a check and a balance on, say, democracy or whatever, and it's become corrupted and it's become and it's turned into this thing where now it's a way to hold on to power, right? Or you can even see this with Christianity. Right? A lot of Jesus' teachings, they were all about being communistic and loving thy neighbor and helping people out. Don't suffer the poor and all of these sorts of things. I can't remember the exact quotes, but you know what I'm saying. And then now the whole ideology has created these overarching power dynamics, right? Like we were just watching the consecration. I can't remember what it's called, but basically how they're going to be voting in a new pope.
Oh,
right? Because the old pope died, new pope's coming in. There's a whole hierarchy built around the entire thing, a whole city and a whole nation state based off of it. All of those sorts of things. So, like, that's why we have to be eternally vigilant. We have to always work on dismantling those hierarchies. And actually, it also, I don't mean to just ramble, but the thing that you brought up, right, about like maybe in the future we might need to constantly have people that are still questioning things. We absolutely would. It reminds me of this J-Reg, funny enough, a J-Reg video that came out the other day. I love the guy. I think he's hilarious. Anyway, he was showing like how in an anarchist society, how people are still going to have all kinds of problems. And one person stands up and says, I want to be an anarchist. And they're like, well, we already had a revolution. Like, you don't need to be an anarchist anymore. He's like, well, I still want to be an anarchist. And I thought about that, and I was thinking about that now, too. And it's like, yeah, but he's not wrong, though. Like, because you should always still be that guy, like you still need to question those hierarchies, no matter how far along you get.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've chewed up about 50 minutes already.
Right.
Did we learn anything? Did you learn anything here?
I think that I learned that I first of all, I learned that I need to learn more.
Right.
Which is always a good place to end the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
I also learned that I might be getting trolled a little bit with the whole anarcho-nihilist thing. Like, are you sincere?
Right.
Are you guys actually sincere? And if not, I want to know more because this is intriguing to me. So I think that I learned that I need to be skeptical and I need to ask more questions and I need to learn more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if they're being sincere about at least half of what they believe, then we're on the same page.
For the most part, yeah.
But it just comes down to, like you say, if they're being sincere, if we're not being trolled, then there's just like that end at the end of the road that like we just disagree on what the end is.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's almost not even it's more of a basic argument than something that we would have with, say, Marxists or ANCAPs, where it's like a specific, we don't want capitalism and we don't want a state. Like those are hard lines. But when it comes to the anarcho-nihilist position, a lot of the things that they say, it's like, yeah, I can see it. I mean, like, do I want no structures whatsoever? No, I don't think so. I think that we can organize horizontally just fine.
Yeah.
But should we question them? Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Should we question religion and dominance and all sorts of things from every perspective possible? Sure.
Yeah.
I think that that's a great place to be. So,
I agree.
it's more of a difference on they're, again, nihilistic and I'm optimistic. So, that's my
right.
difference. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my friend Damien. He is an axiological philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
So he uses like a system of morality and value judgments to evaluate certain things. And his reaction to nihilism is like nihilism without the anarcho is very negative.
Right.
In that it values nothing and it intentionally devalues things that have value. So I can see why the word nihilism is not a good place to be necessarily, but I think that anarcho-nihilists maybe aren't as different from regular anarchists as maybe I thought they were.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe that's the deep conversation that we need to have, right? Is how like absolutely serious are you guys about thinking that there's no hope?
Right.
Like, and even if you are serious in thinking that there is no hope, are you willing to work towards a better future, at least in some way?
Right.
Like, I understand you might disagree with structure entirely. Is there a way that we can work with that? Is there a way that we can achieve something that is somewhat closer to a better society with those ideals? I think that that's a really interesting question. And I think that I'd love to have an honest conversation with somebody that knows the answers to those things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, hopefully somebody in the comment section down below.
Yeah, I might have to go searching for an anarcho-nihilist to talk to and see exactly.
Get into a little argument with.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. All right. I guess with that, where can people find you?
Sure. So you can find me on all different platforms. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and Instagram. Instagram's probably my biggest platform right now.
Right.
So definitely go follow me on Instagram. I think it's Re-Education Shorts on Instagram. And if you search that, you'll probably find me. And everywhere else, just kind of search Re-Education, except for on YouTube, where it's Deadhead Animation for inexplicable reasons. And you can find me up there. It's a very bold channel. So yeah, and hope to see hope to see you there.
For sure. I guess, well, thank you so much for coming along with me on this little exploration of anarcho-nihilism. I'm still, I don't know that I'm a lot more enlightened than I was before, but I do feel like I learned a little bit. So
yeah, I think that that's a good place to be. We need to learn a little bit every day.
For sure.